Hey guys, what's up? Welcome in. Good evening, good morning, good night, wherever you're watching from around the world. My name is Jonny Lambert. I'm going to be covering a lot of the Texas sports around the area, a lot of the fandom that I'm kind of a part of. Houston Texans is what does everybody care about? The NFL, right? The Houston Astros, Houston Rockets, Texas Longhorns, basketball and football primarily. Also dabble in a little bit of golf. Just some sports talk from a fan, from a guy. If you guys you like, subscribe, please do. If you guys have any questions, please post them. I will be sure to try and get to everybody. I'm going to kind of run down the different teams from different various areas of sports, starting out with the Houston Texans. So here we go. Hope you guys enjoy the show. And again, like, subscribe. If you guys like what you're hearing, you want to hear more, I appreciate all the support. Diving into the Houston Texans. So we are, Houston Texans are in a current head coaching search. I've been doing a lot of research on this. I've been following every possible venue of reporting I can on what exactly is going on. Houston actually had a sports awards show, I believe last night, and Cal McNair and Hannah McNair, the owners of the Houston Texans, spoke and said they were viewing many different candidates. We already know Mike Kafka and Ijiro. I'm gonna screw his name up. It's the defensive coordinator for the Denver Broncos. Have been invited back for second interviews. So we know they're on the top of the Texans list right now. What many Houston Texans fans want and think it should happen, and I think would be the biggest blockbuster for the Houston Texans, would be DeMeco Ryans. He is currently in the middle of the playoffs right now, going to face the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday. So he's still in football mode. A lot of these coaches are their season's already done. Everything's kind of over. But the NFL also has rules set in place for when you can talk to certain coaches that are involved in the playoffs. And DeMeco Ryans, unfortunately for him, but unfortunately for the Texans, is still in the thick of the playoffs. So they are granted permission. If I'm not mistaken, it's after Sunday's game, so Monday, so next week, because we'll have a week off before the Super Bowl for the Pro Bowl and everything. They're granted permission to talk to coordinators from the respective teams in the playoffs or going to the Super Bowl, whatever the case may be. So we'll see. We'll see if San Francisco, loses to the Eagles, if they lose to Philadelphia and the Niners season is over, then maybe we'll go a little more in depth into what the DeMeco Ryans situation is. From a lot of what I'm hearing right now, honestly, it's not what I want to hear. It's that DeMeco Ryans I think he's leaning more towards the Broncos. And I have a couple theories on this, and I know I'm biased because obviously I'm a Texans fan, but I think really and truly, initially, whenever all this started popping up, when Lovie Smith got fired, and by the way, that was, in my opinion, completely just terrible handling of the way that they fired Lovie Smith. They fired him the day they won the game against the Colts. As soon as their plane landed, it was announced that Lovie Smith was fired. And just I agree. The guy went 3-13-1 this year. He was the worst team in the AFC South, the second worst team in football. lost out on the number 1 pick because everyone's thinking, the Texans are going to tank and they'll get the number 1 overall pick. No, he ends up winning the last game of the season. They actually went 2-1 the last 3 games of the season, and ends up, getting the 2nd overall pick in the draft. And I don't really think that's why they fired Lovie Smith. I honestly think that they hired Lovie Smith with the idea in the back of their mind that, look, this is going to be a tank season. Josh McCown, if you guys followed the whole coaching search, last year, Josh McCown was apparently their number 1 prospect, which makes no freaking sense to me. I think they probably did better with Lovie Smith than they could have done with Josh McCown, because the guy has no head coaching experience. He has no coordinator experience. He has no experience of coaching in the NFL. And why that was even thrown out there, I don't know. I think Nick Caserio maybe is a little bit in love with him, but I mean, he needs to get and again, Josh McCown isn't even doing anything right now. So what are we talking about here? Like let's be that's the one thing like I really need the Texans to do this time, and they have been doing, is be a professional NFL franchise. Like, you guys are at the top tier of football in the world, and if you're gonna start a coaching search, don't just get reputable candidates that we know have been in the NFL, we know have been around the league, and they've done a great job about that so far. So they've interviewed for the 2nd time Matt Kafka, the offensive coordinator of the New York Giants. Sorry, and Jonathan Gannon is another promising prospect, the offensive coordinator of the Philadelphia Eagles. Me personally, I would love DeMeco Ryans. I mean, that's the fan favorite. I mean, obviously he was a player with Houston since he got drafted in 2006. He played with the Texans, for 6 seasons or 7 seasons, I guess, through 2012. That's the fan favorite. That's who most people want. So if they can get him, great. A lot of what I'm hearing over the last couple days has been that maybe he's going to the Broncos, and this is all hearsay, and it's so tough to judge this time of year, because it's, again, at the same time, DeMeco Ryans is trying to coach a defense into the Super Bowl. So it's like, how much is he really putting into these interviews? How much is he really thinking about this? Is this his, is this at the top of his mind right now? Yeah. Would DeMeco Ryans love to be a head coach? Hell yeah. I mean, that's when you go into coaching, that's your, grand aspiration. But is it really, are you getting everything out of him whenever you have these? And from what I've understood, the first interview was pretty basic stuff. That's that's just what you're going to get. It's like I said, his mind is elsewhere right now, and that's totally understandable. I mean, I honestly feel like it's if they end up getting him, it would be a decision that's made. I just can't see it being made next week, and if they prolong it after the Super Bowl, I'm fine with that. I don't care. Like, let him coach into the Super Bowl, and if that's the guy you want, that's the guy you want. It's not like there aren't other candidates out there right now. The whole Sean Payton thing, I just really don't think he wants to come to Houston. There's a lot of red flags for the Houston Texans right now. We all know that. If you're a fan, you know that. I don't think that Sean Payton wants to come into a place with that much stigma attached to it. I don't think that he is in total agreement with the way the organization is being run. And God love Cal McNair, but he is just not a football guy. He's not. I think Nick Caserio is. I thought it was a great hire when they hired him as a GM. It's been a rocky road. I mean, you got to understand. Nick Caserio got brought into probably one of the worst NFL GM scenarios that you could ever fathom. I mean, the whole Deshaun Watson thing was a nightmare, and it just loomed over the franchise for 2 years. And no one wanted that. No one. The Texans even just basically paid him for a year to sit on the sideline and just go away for a little bit because it was just such a nightmare. And that's what Nick Caserio walked into. And I think he did a great job in the draft. I think the rookies he pulled out of the draft was amazing. We can have conversations about Derek Stingley versus Sauce Gardner. And, clearly, Sauce Gardner was the better corner this year. And Derek Stingley had some injury problems later on in the season. He still seems like a solid player. Look, guys, this is his rookie season. Don't get all up in arms like, oh, we wasted the pick. That was, and maybe so. Maybe Sauce ends up, being a Hall of Famer, and Derek Stingley ends up being, a guy that pokes around the league for a few years and then disappears in the distance. I don't know yet. I don't really think that. I think Derek Stingley has all the intangibles that you need at the corner position. I watched film. I got really into the draft last year and all the different, just because the Texans have so much draft capital over the next, at the original time from 2021 to 2024, over the next 3 years, they have so much draft capital. They have a cap space that's going to be over $40 million. There's just so many reasons for a head coach to want to come to Houston. There is no other franchise right now that's looking for a head coach that doesn't have the appeal, minus the stigma. And I know it's not even the Texans' fault, really. It's the previous people that are gone. It's not the current people that are in the Texans organization. It's the previous people that have already left. It's Deshaun Watson. It's Bill O'Brien. It's Jack Easterby. It's all these people that the Texans took care of. They're gone now. Okay, let's reset. We were doing great, in the 2010s. We won, several AFC South Division championships. We went to the playoffs. We were a game away from going to the AFC Championship 2019 and then lost to the Super Bowl champs. This was an organization that was on the come up. And then all of a sudden, this whole, Bill O'Brien, Deshaun Watson, DeAndre Hopkins leaving, it just put a giant grenade into everything that they had been building. And it's so frustrating to watch as a fan. And I feel like for anybody, it's frustrating to watch because they put so much effort into building this thing. We are the Houston Texans are the newest NFL franchise. It's been 20 years now, but they've done a lot, and they did a lot of it in the 2010s, and it was nice. And now everybody's like, Texas is such a big football state, so everyone expects so much. It's the same way with the Cowboys. Everyone expects so much from an NFL team in Texas because we are we're such a football state. Texas is. That's a fact of the matter, and we want results. It's not a wait and see type of deal with us. Every single season we're sitting here going, all right, are we going to go this year? Let's go. You know what I mean? That's just the nature of Texas football, and I think whoever comes here and head coaches needs to understand that. I don't think the Lovie Smith hiring was. I don't honestly think it was a well thought out process. I think honestly it was Josh McCown. I think originally it was Brian Flores, and then the whole lawsuit bumped up with him, and things kind of fell through, and no one wanted to touch that, obviously. And now it looks like he might be getting hired for the DC at the Minnesota Vikings. So I don't know. We'll see how that goes. I guess all his legal things are handled. I don't really know. I don't even know. No one even really talks about that anymore. It's kind of weird how news works and stuff just kind of gets brushed under the rug after a few months of it being hot news. And I think the Lovie Smith hire was just look, this is what we got. We got this seasoned vet on the staff. Just promote him. Everything else has fell through the floor. The fans are upset. They want to know what's going on. let's just make Lovie Smith the head coach, and we'll tank for a season. I honestly think that was the Texans' intention. I have no inclination that they had any plans on having a productive season in 2022. I don't. And no one that watched that team does. They looked like a team that was just like, all right, when's the next draft and when's the next, training camp? Like what do we need to get ready for this year or next year? I feel like if they don't get DeMeco Ryans, I honestly think it's going to be Jonathan Gannon. That's my opinion. If they go any other direction, it would shock me. And again, the fan favorite is DeMeco Ryans, obviously, because he was a linebacker here and he was great. He was, a teammate of J.J. Watt. J.J. Watt's already come on Twitter and endorsed him. That's who the fans want. DeMeco Ryans would be an excellent hire. Now, we look a little further into that. Let's just say, we get DeMeco Ryans. The Houston Texans hire DeMeco Ryans as the head coach, and are they going to do the whole Lovie Smith thing where they say, all right, you're the head coach and the defensive coordinator? Or are they going to – here's my biggest question. Are the Houston Texans, if they hire DeMeco Ryans, are they going to say, okay, this is your team now. You're the head coach. We have currently, Pep Hamilton, coordinating the offense. We have, Danny Barrett. By the way, I have no problem with the running backs coach. I think Danny Barrett's an excellent coach. We have Ben McDaniels as the passing game coordinator. And then on defense, you're basically filling that spot. We have some specialist guys, and then, you got Frank Ross as, our special team coordinator. Do you want to clean house, and do you want to just completely rip this thing apart and you find some new guys? And that's the other thing is like, is Nick going to be involved in that? Is it DeMeco's call? Is it Nick's call? And it goes the same thing for anybody they hire. Jonathan Gannon, I mean, whoever they bring in, that's my biggest question, because Pep Hamilton's kind of like hanging in the balance right now, I feel like. Sitting back in Houston going, do I have a job next year? I mean, I don't know. I'm still under contract, but I mean, am I going to be the offensive coordinator of the Houston Texans next year? That's kind of where I feel like Pep Hamilton's hanging right now. And to be completely honest with you, I am not impressed with Pep Hamilton at all. Like, I'm totally aware that they didn't give him a whole lot of tools this year. They didn't give him much. I think the inclination was Davis Mills had a great, last half of the season in 2021, and they're like, all right, let's see where this kid can ride us. And he just didn't. He's just, just not. He's just not. He's not an NFL starting quarterback. He's just. And I don't know if he even ends up as a backup. I don't know. They may end up getting rid of him. I mean, it's just not. It's not working, and we know that. We knew that, a few games into the season, we were just like, this sucks. This is not great. So that's the biggest question to me is when they make the hire, and I feel like it'll be within the next couple of weeks. I don't know if it'll be next week. Honestly, that's what a lot of people were saying, that it's going to need to come. January 26th is today, and the Carolina Panthers just hired Frank Reich, and that's like the latest from what I was watching on ESPN earlier. That's the latest head coaching hire, first head coaching hire we've had in the offseason in a while, which to me just makes no sense. I think the NFL need to figure out the way, because here's the thing. You're pulling great coordinators from a great program. Well, where do you think they're going to be in the early months of the year? They're going to be in the playoffs. I mean, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for a coordinator that coached their team into the playoffs and far into the playoffs. So why are there, all these restrictions on interviewing and this and that? just wait. Like, it's not like it's a big deal. We're not playing football till August. We're gearing up for the draft in April. You've got 2 months. You've got February and March. You could allot this time for head coaching hires. I don't know why it's such an early process that as soon as the season ends, and I get with the firing. I mean, and some people, some organizations they'll fire head coaches like Frank Reich in the middle of the season, which is, to me, a little bit ridiculous. It's just what did Jeff Saturday do? He went 1-7. I mean, he won their first game and then lost the rest of them. It doesn't make any sense. Why the change in the middle of the season, and then why the change immediately after the end of the season as far as hiring somebody new? If you want to fire him right after the season, I get that. The whole thing with Lovie Smith, that was quick. I mean, and they did a press statement, Nick Caserio and Cal McNair, and it's all good and well. Again, I don't think Lovie Smith was here to be the long-term coach. No one did. I mean, the guy's, he's in his golden years. He's a great defensive coach. He's had his moments with the Bears, and he was under David Culley, in 2021 as the DC, and the defense didn't do much, and the team, the Texans haven't done much in the last 3 years. I mean, since they went to that game in 2019 against Pat Mahomes, when they got it still makes me sick to my stomach thinking about that game. They were up so much and then just blew the game, and since then they haven't recovered. The organization has not recovered. So that's my biggest question moving forward is if the Texans make a head coach hire within the next couple weeks, what does it look like for the I guess you could say the organizational chart of coaching? Are we going to clean house? Are we getting rid of Pep Hamilton? Are we, are you getting rid of your coordinators, or are you sticking with what you got? I mean, I'm not impressed with Pep Hamilton. I'm really not. I know the work he did with Justin Herbert. I'm just not. I don't think he did a great job this year. Some things to look forward to, though, and we'll kind of run down this. The way that the roster looks right now is just stripped. It's like they took everything out and just put it down to bare bone. We'll address one thing first. The offensive line. Laramie Tunsil and Titus Howard had great seasons, and that is something you need to solidify. I think both of those guys need to be back here next year, without question. That is your core, especially if you're bringing a brand new quarterback in, that you're going to have to protect. That is your core immediately. You need to make sure that Laramie Tunsil and Titus Howard are the left and right tackles. No questions asked. Kenyon Green will be back. He showed some flashes. He did not have a great season. I mean, Kenyon Green is a big dude. He's a bus. And I said this whenever I was watching his draft videos, and we were kind of doing some take on him. I don't really think the Texans wanted to draft him where they did, but they ended up with him, whatever. And maybe he turns out great. We don't know yet. I mean, and again, guys, this is rookie season. A lot of these guys, this is a rookie season. I mean, it's 1 year. Just give it a minute, let it simmer, and maybe they turn out to something great. And I feel like that. I'm fine with left guard. Right guard, we had AJ Cann. I'm fine with it. I'm fine with AJ Cann. I don't have an issue with that. Center just got weird. Justin Britt left the team in week 2, and where'd he go? Where is Justin Britt? Basically, all I've gathered is that he had some personal issues. I don't know if it would be a family or health, or it wasn't an injury, because he's on the non-injury reserve list for the Texans right now. But he's not technically on the roster, so I don't even know if Justin Britt's coming back next year. Scott Quisenberry did a decent job, but Scott Quisenberry is not anything to write home about. I mean, they're going to have to address this in the offseason. And that's the other thing, is they have $40+ million in cap space, which is more than any other team in the NFL, which is another thing that's extremely, attractive to any head coach candidate. You're going to have free reign on the free agency market. You're going to have free reign on the draft. They have 2 first-round draft picks, a second-round draft pick, and 2 third-round draft picks. And I think 4 or 5, they have 11 picks in the draft, that's ridiculous. Like, Nick Caserio, again, I am not mad at Nick Caserio whatsoever. This was going to be a stripped down to the bone process, and I knew that going in. I have no problems with Nick Caserio, with the only exception of the last 2 head coaching hires. I just really feel like they didn't have any other candidates to hang their hat on that were like, this is it. And they just kind of went, you know what, give this guy a job for a year. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of a victim of circumstance type of deal. I don't really feel like either of those candidates were, something that they were comfortable with. I just think it was kind of like we're getting close to, draft time and training camp time, and this is the time that you need to hire a head coach. Give him the job, whatever. He's already on staff. That's kind of how I feel about it. I don't think they were all-star hires, and no one does, and they weren't, and they were awful, and we saw that. So this year, I do feel like they're doing their due diligence. They're going down the candidates. They're going down the list. They're calling everybody. I don't think Sean Payton is a possibility. I really don't. I don't think Sean Payton wants to come here. So I'm just going to scrap that immediately. I think it's honestly going to be – it's going to come down to D'Amico Ryans and Jonathan Gannon. And if they don't get those, then Mike Kafka is not a terrible hire. I mean, he's not. He will actually – I think he'll end up being the youngest head coach, which is a new thing now. You want those young minds in the NFL. I mean, the game is changing, and maybe that works out. I don't know. I think a lot of Texans fans are going to be disappointed if it's not D'Amico Ryans, just because he had such a great playing career here. He has a reputation, with the city. So, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at with that. As far as, like I said, roster improvements, went over the O-line. Center needs to be addressed immediately. Center needs to be addressed. Whether it be in the draft or free agency, whatever the case may be, there needs to be a new center. The rookie campaign for the Texans, I mean, it went damn well. I have no idea why Jalen Petrie has not been nominated for a Defensive Rookie of the Year. The guy had 147 tackles and 5 interceptions. He led rookies in tackles. He's a safety. That's stupid. It's not anything to brag about for the Texans defense. That's terrible. You don't want your safety making the most tackles. Basically what that means is you let a minimum of 7 guys break down, in coverage or in the run scheme or whatever the case may be, to the point to where you needed the guy that's lined up at the very farthest end of the quarterback to come tackle him. That's what that means. That's not something to brag about. It's concerning. And even more concerning is, who the guy that had the second most tackles is? Jonathan Owens, the other safety. So it's like you're just letting everyone run towards the defense until eventually you got these 2 guys that are like your safety net. And that's why they call them safeties, right? But you don't want those guys leading the team in tackles. That's a terrible defensive scheme. And on this point, though, I will say Lovie Smith did improve the defense from 2021. I mean, it looked better. They had more talent. They had more flashes of turnovers and sacks, but that's not a good scheme to start with. You don't want your free safety and strong safety being the leaders in tackles. That makes no sense whatsoever. Petrie also had 5 interceptions, which was tied for, I think, second most, or tied for second most or most, I can't remember, among rookies. I don't know why the guy didn't get, I don't know why he didn't get Defensive Rookie of the Year recognition. I mean, Sauce Gardner had a great season. He really did, but, I mean, you put the 2 guys on paper, Petrie was all over the ball. I mean, if you watch those Texans games, every play on defense, it seemed like you saw number 5 somewhere in the screen. He was around the ball every single play. It was phenomenal to watch, and I was so excited when they picked him. Him and Dameon Pierce, as soon as they got him, I watched the draft tape on both of them, and those were 2 picks where I just jumped out of my chair and was like, yes, those will be top NFL guys over the next few years, I promise you. Derek Stingley, I don't know yet. Again, it's only his rookie season, but he got hurt, and even in the games he was in, there were several situations where it just looked like he just wasn't. He wasn't the 3rd overall pick in the NFL draft caliber type of guy, and maybe it changes. Maybe he's learned a lot over this year. I don't know yet. We'll dive into that, next season and see how he does. I don't know. Dameon Pierce, had he not gotten hurt, against the Cowboys in that game, would have easily gone over 1,000 yards as a rookie. He had 5 touchdowns, or 4. I think it was 4 rushing touchdowns. He had a great season. The guy showed flashes of just what he can do. He is the Thunder, which is another thing that I'm really interested to. There's so many teams for a long time went into that whole two running back system. I feel like that's kind of going away nowadays. I just don't see a whole lot of teams doing it anymore. You'll see it a little bit, but you look at the Bengals with Mixon, the Niners with McCaffrey. Once they got McCaffrey, you don't really see a whole lot of that other punch anymore. Like when you had like the Browns, had Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb, which they still do, and you don't see it anymore. It's and Austin Eckler had a hell of a season for the Chargers. He carried fucking everything. He was the running back. You know what I mean? I feel like that's where the NFL's starting to go again. Is you just need one. Just one guy that's just going to absolutely tear you apart. Same thing with Derrick Henry with the Titans. And then you might have one guy that'll come in and just give him a breather, pretty much. It's not like he's expected to do something. He's given the breather to the starting guy. That's it. So I'm not too concerned about running back. I think Dameon Pierce is a gold mine. I think they struck gold when they drafted him. So Texans are fine there. Wide receiver is a concern. Brandon Cooks wants out. He basically sat down on the bench for 4 weeks, saying, I got an injury, and I don't, he kind of pulled the whole Lamar Jackson thing and didn't really want to, participate anymore. It was just sad, and I think it's